welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home.
Show up, show up, show up, show up, show up.
Instead of paying homage today, we're paying homage.
People will talk about my hair before they talk about the governor's race.
White people and white people alone put that man in office, and we should not ever be confused about that.
These folks are coming for everything. You can see it in their movements.
It ain't no black or brown body that is safe in this country.
So many people have stuck with cities when cities didn't stick with them.
Your rest is selfish.
What specifically are you asking me to do, and how specifically will that stop this shit show that we're seeing?
What we cannot do is make the road for them easy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You are my brother. You all are my sisters. I love you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome, 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 welcome.
Welcome home, you guys. This is episode 80 like Grady. If you know about Atlanta, you know what I mean. We are your hosts. Welcome to Native Land Pod. I'm Tiffany Cross, here with Angela Rye and Andrew Gillum. What's up, you guys?
Can we talk?
Okay,
a minute.
Andrew was saying that because every week, Angela or I will be doing the intro.
Intro to the show and let me show you Andrew every week.
Welcome home, y'all. This is
Welcome
episode 80.
home.
Yo, what's going on? Yo. Show up, show up, show up, show up, show up.
Tiff, say something else. Let me show you Andrew.
And we're thrilled to be here with you guys.
That's right, Tiffany.
We couldn't be more excited. We couldn't be more excited.
Andrew
Don't
does
you do
that
this weekend.
every week. This is why we love being together, but when we're not in the same place, it gets a little challenging. So anyway, welcome home. We got a lot to get into today. I'm really excited that we have a guest joining us. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, who kicked off her gubernatorial bid in Georgia this week, will be joining us shortly. But we have other stuff to get into, too. So do you guys have other topics you want to talk about, or are you going to save it all for the mayor?
I would not mind talking about the hell Andrew's been through with FAMU. And that's something we can also talk to the mayor about as a FAMU rattler herself.
Yes.
Do you hear him?
Claude
He's doing
Mercy.
it right now.
He's does
still
it.
doing it
Your
right
audience,
now.
you can see what we're talking about. He's
No,
doing
this
it
is
right
called the Amen section.
Okay.
The Amen
Okay.
section,
Well, can your
it is
amen
appropriate
wait
to
until
speak.
like this latter half of my sentence?
It did sound like the end of the sentence.
You know what? Actually, you know what, Tiff? I'm about to get him right now. Keep saying amen.
Yes.
I also want to talk about everything that's been going on at FAMU because it has just been, now he want to be quiet because he knows it's a setup.
Right. I am curious to hear the mayor's...
I will not be complicit.
He does it all the time. I am curious to hear the mayor's response on that. As you all know, she is an alum of FAMU. And this week, Andrew, you did your solo pod on everything happening at FAMU. And we've also talked about it on the episode. So yeah, I'm eager to hear it. So let's get into it.
Let's get it.
Well, as the honorary rattler I am, I just want y'all to know I'm also wearing Fear of God today in the spirit of solidarity. As y'all know, Jerry Lorenzo also went to Florida A&M University.
Yes.
Well, it is not a coincidence that so many of the people with whom we know, and even the listeners know a rattler, because FAMU is the #1 producer of baccalaureate degree holders.
Yeah.
It's the largest single campus HBCU. So it's right that we should, have a role in producing excellence into the space.
We're instead of paying homage today, we're paying homage.
Oh, Jesus. Well, if you would have had us
if y'all don't get it, y'all gotta listen to the show.
Listen to the last show. What'd you say about getting flued out?
Yeah, I said if you had us flued out to Detroit or wherever it is you are, we wouldn't have any problems.
Well, I wanted you guys to get flued out to everywhere the State of the People tour would be. I wanted you to get flued out to Atlanta, to Richmond, Virginia.
I'm glad you brought that up, Angela, because we will be in Jackson, Mississippi. So if you have not signed up for State of the Tour of the People there, I think State of the People of the Tour of the thing.
Yeah, did you hear what Mayor Baraka said when he came and greeted us? He was like, I just want to greet everybody. It's the State of the People. State of the People. State of the Power to the People Tour.
Yes. Very, very excited to be.
Are y'all not
joining
going
there.
to Los Angeles? Where we land on that?
Well, we'll talk about that after
Girl,
the show.
that sound like internal business.
There's some off-camera folks who I think we're still trying to get that together. But I want to say really quickly a topic that I wanted to get into. You guys, so you all know, I read all your comments. So please make sure that you're subscribed to our channel, that you're liking it, that you're sharing it, that you're telling people, because it really does feel like you all are community with us. And so I read all of the things that you guys say, mostly on YouTube. I read Instagram too. But it feels like we're in constant conversation. And I'm always very interested in how people receive the show. And I love hearing your thoughts because people weigh in on all of our topics. And I have some thoughts, which we'll talk about after the mayor, but a lot of comments on last week's show about being in solidarity with communities of color. And so I wanted to touch base about that. Do you guys want to do that quickly now, or do you want to do it after the mayor?
I think the mayor's joined us.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So after we have Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, we are going to pick up on some of these topics. But right now, we're going to bring in the mayor to join us. All right, appearing like that, like magic on the screen, Madam Mayor, soon to be, we'll see, maybe Governor Keisha Lance Bottoms. So very excited to have you join us today. Congratulations on the announcement.
Welcome home.
It's so good to see all of you all
Welcome
the friendly
home, Rattler.
faces. Thank you.
And, people always think, Keisha, I will call you Madam Mayor, but I know her, so I'm saying Keisha. They always think we look alike. And I was telling her all the time.
Well, y'all both very beautiful.
Well, thank you, Andrew.
That's true.
But we were in Miami together, Angela, the mayor, and I sat at breakfast with a woman who I thought she knew who I was. And I realized at the end that she thought she was having breakfast with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Yes. And I'm like, had I known that, I would have taken full advantage.
Oh my God. Tiff was like, you can send me a donation. Let me give you these wire instructions.
Let me give you my cash out.
Well, just so you know, Tiffany, we're getting braids next week. So,
okay.
Get the memo. Expect to see you in Jackson, Tiffany.
Right? I want so bad for America to finally have a governor who has braids.
Because this natural hair is not for the faint of heart. And
not that Georgia humidity.
No. And I just told somebody today, I said, what I do know, I said, people will talk about my hair before they talk about the governor's race. So I'm going to be caught out here looking crazy.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be the first one in your text messages because I'm going to be like, now what happened? Because I can't have you out here. Keisha, I can't have you out here. I'll be like, what we got on? What we doing? I'll be the first one. I'll tell you when it's flying. I'm going to tell you like, ooh, let's go to the mall real quick. Andrew knows.
We had a recent incident here this past week where a wig took on an identity of its own.
I knew she froze because my joke was funny. I knew she froze.
That was funny. And when we were in Miami, my line sister, not Denise Hendricks, Yolanda.
My former EP.
I know, I'm thinking about Denise. Was like, your hair is making me so mad because the natural hair was doing all this and the other people's hair was doing all this.
Not the other people's hair.
I'm about to get out of this situation.
Well, shout out to Denise Hendricks.
Yes.
All
right, Rattler.
Or another Rattler. Yes. Keisha's line sister was my former executive producer. So shout out to her. But very happy to have you. And congrats on the announcement. I'm sure my co-hosts have many, many questions for you.
Can I ask before we get into the announcement?
Yes,
because Andrew, and we've been watching Andrew and our good brother Vince Evans been running ragged on this FAMU stuff. Mayor Keisha, I gotta ask you. I know, take a deep breath because I gotta ask you. What do you think is going to take for the trustees, the newly appointed, and the ones who have been on the board for some time, the alums, the students? The students been in the hallways singing Old Negro Spiritual since they've been like, help us overcome. What do you think is the path forward, given where we are right now with FAMU?
FAMU is in a really interesting spot, to say the least, because it is a state institution. So part of what sets FAMU apart, there's so many things that set us apart, But when you are a state-supported HBCU, you are literally at the mercy of the state. And I know my brother Andrew understands that. So it is my hope that she'll surprise us all. That she won't be all the things that we are expecting. Someone sent to dismantle FAMU as we know it. I don't know her personally. I think at this point, the best we can do is try and work with her as best we can. You know, we're working under some very difficult circumstances. I had a conversation with someone earlier today. I have an endowed scholarship in the journalism program. I'm going, what do I do with the money that I've donated to the university? What do I do with the money that I am planning on donating to the university? I think none of us know. I mean, this is uncharted territory for us at FAMU. But unfortunately, I think it's probably an indication of what's to come for our HBCUs across the country. Any HBCUs, especially that are controlled by the state, Republican-led states.
The mayor is right that we, as a state institution, do find ourselves, oddly at the mercy of the power structure that be. However, traditionally, governors have not really come for when we end up in the mouth of the governor or in the mouths of state legislative leaders, it's usually in preparation of them taking something from us. When we don't hear from them, that's a good day. It's a good year. It's a good time. Even though we're not funded the way we should be funded, we're not supported by the state in the way that we should be, but we punch above our weight. I do know Marva. I have worked with her before on some broadband issues previously. And if she were pursuing something in that range, I think it'd be wholly supportable. The issue is that when you don't have a candidate with the experience that the board advertised in wanting for a president, then you have to measure them. So you don't have a record of their academic, management and what they've done. You sort of have to take what cues you can from the people who are around them, who they are appointed by, who they have been in alignment with. And unfortunately, a candidate who has been appointed by Rick Scott, former governor of Florida and now U.S. Senator, who has been appointed repeatedly by Ron DeSantis to boards, who sat as the chair of the State Board of Education, the K-12 system, when it started to ban books, ban history, and redesign what Black history is to basically center white folks as the heroes and heroines. I don't know what cues to take. I don't know what the master plan is. And she may not know what the master plan is. What I do know is when the call comes in from the person who put you there, you take it. And the second thing is you largely do what it is that they asked you to do. And for somebody like Trump, DeSantis, Rick Scott, they ain't never have nothing good coming for us, and I don't anticipate they'll have anything good coming for us in the future. And so I would just say the fight's not over. We're going to continue to figure out how we make this happen, and it's not just about FAMU. FAMU, yes, is the fight right now, but the reason they came after the biggest, the largest, and the highest producing university of baccalaureate, master's degree holder, and doctoral degree holders is because if you can take us out, then they could assume then that they could take anybody else out, right? Yeah. DeSantis punched Walt Disney World when he first got into office, the biggest thing sitting in the state, right? So I take my cues from those folks, but I know you are here, Keisha, as a gubernatorial candidate now, which I can't tell you, I'm over the moon excited. As a Rattler, as someone who has known you and watched your journey, including your service as mayor of Atlanta, I think the future is bright, and I do think the time is now. My question would be, if I could journey to take the first one, would be, having watched Stacey Abrams make the run for governor, not once now, but twice, a lot of times the poobahs of the party, you know what I mean by that, the folks, behind the scenes, raising the money and telling folks what's viable and what isn't viable, largely when they take a risk, which they considered a risk, right? Getting behind a Black woman nominee. They usually try us once. And if it don't work out, they draw the conclusion that it isn't a viable or possible thing to make happen. Of course, we know that to be false because they run and lose all the time, yet they keep running the same play. So my question would be have you learned lessons, or what lessons do you think have been instrumental as you look at that race and now build a campaign of your own that you think might be instructive to the way in which you might run this race?
So, Andrew, you've been on the ballot a lot of times and even running for governor. So I know you and I are going to have an offline conversation about that. But you look at every race, and every race is also a new race. So you look at the numbers, you look at see where turnout was high, where turnout was low. You look at demographic shifts, where are the Democrats, where are the Republicans, and then you build from there. You take the good, you keep it, you take the not so good, and you move on from it. So we've got an ever-changing voter roll in Georgia. Mm-hmm. You all know the Secretary of State has purged hundreds of thousands of people from the voter roll recently. Sometimes you do need to clean up voter rolls, but when you do these wholesale purges, 500,000 people,
450,000. You're right, 500,000. Yeah.
You get real suspicious. So this is going to be a new role, a new race for us. But that being said, we're going to cover it the way that we know it has to be done. We're going to knock on doors. We're going to go in church basements. We're going to visit the Little League softball field. We're going to call people. We're going to post on social media. We're going to do all the things that we know you have to do. And part of it is old-fashioned campaigning. You go into communities and you hear directly from people. I remember when I ran for mayor, I had paid for this great poll that Cornell Belcher did for me, and it was spot on in so many issues. But when my phone bankers were calling people, they said people are talking about potholes in libraries. Mm-hmm. That didn't show up anywhere in my data, but it was what people were talking about when we got them on the phone. So I share that to say, you come up with your issues. I'll come up with my issues that I'm going to focus on. I know we'll talk more about that. And then I got to go into communities and hear directly from people about what they care about. And we'll see if they align.
Well, I'm glad you brought up communities, Madam Mayor, because as you know, I grew up in Georgia, and I think there is this misunderstanding about Georgia sometimes. People think Atlanta is Georgia, no. But there are a lot of communities outside of Atlanta, and the racial demographics in Georgia are shifting rapidly, as you well know. The population right now is still 52, almost 53% white. Black folks make up almost 32% of the population. In Fulton, DeKalb, and Cobb County, where I grew up, Black voters account for around 600,000 voters. But then I think about all the people in the rural parts of Georgia, and there's likely twice that amount. I'm doing a lot of writing, so I'm spending a lot of time in rural Georgia. I'm in rural Georgia about once a month at this point. I wonder why the Democratic Party does not tap into those voters. Oftentimes when people say rural, they think of rural white folks. But the truth is there are Black, Latino, Indigenous, AAPI people in rural Georgia. So I'm thinking about areas like Augusta, Warner Robins, Marshallville, Macon, Savannah. Right now, most of the according to people I've spoken to on the ground, spent time with, most of the GOTV efforts, the Get Out the Vote efforts, are coming from the NAACP down there, which speaks mostly to older people. So younger Black rural people feel completely untapped. What is your plan to reach those voters?
And, Tiffany, that's exactly what we've heard over the last few election cycles. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody cares about what I think. So why should I care about going out to vote for you? What difference does it make? And it's important to remember, Atlanta is only roughly 600,000 people in population. Metro area, just over 6 million. We're barely hitting half the state. So there are a lot of people who don't live in urban centered areas that you're right. They live in other corners of the state. And again, it goes back to tapping into people. When you're talking about expansion of Medicaid in Georgia, we always talk about we want to be LSU and we want to be Alabama in football. But yet Louisiana and Alabama have expanded Medicaid. We still got 300,000 people who are not covered. 9 rural hospitals have closed because we've not expanded Medicaid. Those are the issues that you talk about in these rural communities. When you're talking about counties that don't have pediatricians, that don't have OBGYNs, that makes a difference. We're not just talking about our farmers. We're talking about people who own small businesses. We've got 45% of the people in the state employed by small businesses. When you're talking about tariffs, when you're talking about the 600,000 people from the Port of Savannah and Port of Brunswick who have businesses directly related to the ports, they're being impacted by tariffs. And then a lot of these other issues, whether it's my plan to eliminate income taxes for teachers, that impacts communities across the state. It transcends party lines. So you're talking about corporate landlords. People can't afford to buy houses. They can't get anybody on the phone to talk about a repair in their home from these corporate landlords that nobody's ever seen before. Those things transcend communities when you're talking about our support of small businesses. So many of these issues aren't just urban issues. We all want the same things. We want our communities to be safe. We want to have access to healthcare. We want to be able to put food on the table. All these things transcend community.
One of the things I just thought about, Keisha, when you mentioned teachers, there's one that I was trying to literally find. Her name is Kimberly. We did end up finding her. You've been on Win with Black Women calls with us, and you know how that community is. We met this Black woman who teaches young and shapes young minds every day in Georgia. She came to the first day of the State of the People Power Tour. You, of course, were there on the second day. When we met her, she talked about essentially having to put on a mask for her students during the day. And when she leaves at night, her home is her car. And so to hear what you were just saying about relief of income tax, I just think about all the other forms of relief our teachers need. And I always say, like, I can name every single one of my teachers from the first grade on.
I can too.
So they are so mission critical. What other relief are you thinking of when it comes to those folks who are shaping young minds? Again, they're top of mind because I want to do everything to make sure this sister has a place to lay her head at night, not her car.
So, and what's interesting about that, Angela, when I was mayor, one of the cornerstones of our administration was improving affordable housing stock in the city of Atlanta. And I remember needing to go over to the state capitol to talk to the Republicans about my priorities, thinking they're not going to care about affordable housing, because I kept thinking that's just an Atlanta issue. And even in talking to CEOs, I'm like, what do they care about affordable housing? And I remember having a conversation with someone who I didn't expect would care. And you know why they cared? Because their child's teacher was having to drive 2 hours or 2 hours in traffic, or however it worked out to be, because they couldn't afford to live in the city of Atlanta. The legislators cared because they had to come into Atlanta and rent places, or their kids were working in Atlanta. So I say all that to say these issues touch all of us. So we have a teacher shortage in Georgia of about 5,200, I think were the last numbers that I saw. So we know eliminating those income taxes will help them immensely. But also, again, going back to this affordable housing piece, workforce housing. I remember Ambassador Young telling me many years ago, stop saying affordable housing, makes people think about the projects. That doesn't invoke good thoughts. Talk about workforce housing. These are houses that we're talking about for our teachers, for our nurses, for the person who picks up your trash, the person who delivers your mail. We just got to push for policies that make it easier for people to exist. And
Can
so
I ask you,
go ahead.
No, just a follow-up on this housing piece. According to an Axios piece, it says that Atlanta is ranking 4th in terms of gentrification, eliminating majority Black areas. And so I want to know how you'll combat that, and now taking that full that full expectation and that intentionality around affordable housing throughout the state of Georgia, starting with, your hometown and where you served as mayor. That is a hard stat, and it's super sensitive to me because I'm from Seattle and our Black population has been reduced to half in Seattle.
Yeah, I would tell people all of the time, don't sell your house in Atlanta.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges we have in Atlanta, and my family was even faced with this. Your grandparents leave a house, somebody in the family lives in the house, nobody has a will. We don't always give the attention we need to things like that. So then you get these clouded titles. The roof starts to cave in. Who's going to pay for the roof? You can't access the grants and all the things available because you don't have title to the house. So that's something specifically that the state can help with. Helping people clean up titles, helping making it easier for people to access resources to help them maintain these family homes. But what I did when I was mayor, I created an affordable housing trust fund. I actually started it when I was on city council. I introduced this legislation when we were doing all the things related to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and we started seeing the community flip. It's a community that my family came from, the cotton fields of Crawfordville, Georgia, landed on the west side. We created this affordable housing trust fund that was for a very small portion of the city, helping the people pay their property taxes, because that's the offshoot of gentrification.
Every time.
Sometimes you want the communities revitalized, but you want the people who have stuck with the community to be able to afford to stay and enjoy the benefits of the revitalization. When I was mayor and we negotiated the transaction for what we call the Gulch, now Centennial Yards, right there in downtown Atlanta, I expanded that affordable housing trust fund. We put part of the money that we got from that transaction into the affordable housing trust fund so that we could expand that citywide. So when your property taxes go up, as it has on my grandparents' house that my mother now owns, you can now have enough access to this affordable housing trust fund to help you offset those property taxes. And then just lastly, we just got to be thoughtful about how we are preserving our communities. We can't stop redevelopment. It's a free market. People can come in, they can build within the zoning parameters what they want to build. But it also means we are saying, when you come into our communities, these are the things that we are asking for you. We need a set aside for workforce housing. We need to make sure that you're contributing to our affordable housing trust fund to help people be able to pay their property taxes. And it's also good for business because you want to come in as a good neighbor and you want people to be able to you want a variety of people in our communities. It makes our communities better. So it's a very tough issue that's being faced by cities across America, but it's also very frustrating because so many people have stuck with cities when cities didn't stick with them. And it's something that you have to be intentional about. And as governor, you can have an even larger impact because you can push through policies through the state that doesn't make it one-off, whether it's just in Atlanta. It can be in policies, whether it be in Monroe and Madison, Valdosta, or wherever it is across the state.
Madam Mayor, I want to ask you about what I would consider to be the biggest economic theft in Georgia. And that is essentially the defunding of HBCUs there. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There was a lawsuit, a 67-page lawsuit, that alleged the Board of Regents there were diverting resources away from HBCUs like Fort Valley, giving that money to UGA. In this lawsuit, it was uncovered that 19 members of the Board of Regents went to UGA. Fort Valley students talk about how their campus looks. And I ask about this because given what is happening with FAMU and given the importance of our HBCUs right now, the lawsuit eventually went away, but the problems did not. So I'm just curious, as governor, how you would address the funding of the ever so important HBCUs that exist in Georgia.
Well, and I'll give the example of FAMU and FSU. It's not Georgia, but you think FAMU has a beautiful campus right up until you go over to see FSU. Mm-hmm. And you realize how short FAMU has been cut and multiply that in Georgia. So again, the governor controls a lot. The governor makes those appointments to the Board of Regents. So if you want people, Brian Kemp went to the University of Georgia. So if you want representation, you got to make sure the representation is representative of the state. Making sure that our HBCUs are represented at the Board of Regents, making sure the funding is fairly allocated, making sure that our HBCUs aren't a second thought when we're allocating resources, that we aren't pouring it all into just certain schools, that we are being fair. And it also means that we're making sure that these schools can be destination places, so that all of the top programs aren't just at one university, but they are equally allocated at our HBCUs. I remember a professor at FAMU, and I wish I could remember his name. He would tell the story about many decades ago, FAMU used to have a law school. Now, we have a law school now, but it was after the first law school was taken away from FAMU.
And the story that... and given to FSU.
And given to FSU. The story he would tell was that one day, the way they knew the law school was being taken away, they came and started taking the books out of the library. That's how they knew the law school was being taken away. That's not just the story of FAMU and FSU. That's the story of HBCUs across Georgia. Make sure that we are putting programs at our HBCUs that make them destination institutions, and then we are attracting and recruiting great people to lead our HBCUs. It can't just always be about fundraising. That's important, but it's also got to be about academics and making sure that our students are equipped for success. Again, the power of the pen from the governor's office.
It's so Mayor, important. I know. Unfortunately, the mayor has to run. I'm told. You tell us, because Andrew has one more. Do you have time for a question from Andrew? We'll ask her. Do you have time for one more question? Because I'm being told that you have to run.
I do have time for another question.
My encouragement, Mayor, is that what you are saying, the issues that you are hitting, that title issue, which is just such a processy thing, you might think. But my family, who were enslaved in Georgia, in Clyatesville, Georgia, just outside of Valdosta, lost our family's property, my great-grandfather, because of this whole title issue. And the banks were ready to steep in, take it, sell it to the developers, and it's gone down the road in a whole host of history and service and sacrifice is lost for a group of people. But everything that you have mentioned today, you haven't talked about Donald Trump once. And I think it's important that the people of Georgia know that as governor, your number one priority, you're waking up and going to bed every night thinking about them. The wallet, kitchen table, and pocketbook issues. That's all you have talked about given the time that we have had here today. And that's the stuff that people aren't saying in polls because it's just so baked into their everyday experience. It's just par for the course, so they're not complaining. But it is a big complaint for a lot of people. And my support of you and love of you, not only as a mayor, but as a candidate for governor, is further now steeped in what I know about mayors, is that they keep it close to the people. Is that you'll take that same energy of your closeness and advocacy for the everyday folks in Georgia, regardless of party affiliation, who they voted for, didn't vote for, or if they voted at all, that you know the heart in their mind because it's been your lived experience too. And I can't think of a higher recommender for a person for public office than one who has not just talked the talk, but walked the walk. So I wish you the very, very best. I think on all of our behalfs as you climb this mountain. And I know that your pathway will hopefully, one, I know be successful, but two, ease it for all the rest of us at every level of government, wherever it is that we choose to serve.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You are my brother. You all are my sisters. I love you. I thank you all for always fighting the good fight on behalf of all of us and keeping all of us honest and holding us accountable to the reasons that we are here and the work that we are called to do. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Go get them. Go get them.
Keisha Lance Bottoms, a former member of Atlanta City Council, former mayor, former judge, former appointee
Senior
to the
advisor.
Biden administration. Lots of titles. We will stay tuned to see if Governor Keisha Lance Bottoms will be next. Is America
Claiming
ready
it.
for a black governor? It's about damn time. We need
Hell
a black
yeah, we
woman
are.
governor. Black woman governor.
Let me
so
just
thank
say
you
this
so much
last
for
thing.
joining us.
We are going to book Tiff's braids appointment right after this so that y'all can
Yes.
really keep rocking and looking
I'm
like
down. I'm down.
Twinning.
I love it.
1B30. Okay, that's the cover number.
I love it. That's so
Thank you,
Y'all are
Madam
so
Mayor.
real.
We'll see you
I
on the
love it.
campaign trail. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lord, y'all know I don't know what 1B30 is, but I
That's
assume
the
it has something to
hair
do with
color.
the type of hair.
Yes, the hair
I
color.
thought, okay. All right. I love it. Keep it real, Mayor. Keep it real.
I thought,
The
I
head
really
color.
enjoyed the conversation with her because I feel like all of our questions are things that she will likely not be asked
True.
in other outlets. I did a lot of reading this morning looking at, the Times, the Post, even the AJC. I talked to reporters even before we got on air, and just some of the things that they were concerned about and highlighting just really didn't speak to our community. And it just shows the disconnect sometimes between media and the people.
It's also
so,
intentional, Tiff,
Yes.
to keep her from being able to get to the stuff that she was talking about today.
Right.
Because what she was saying today is exactly what can move people from their couches and get them to the polls. I already have a sense of how she is going to respond to a fourth grader as president throwing a temper tantrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen her handle people like that. But what you're going to do for me is going to be the first and the last question that voters are asked. What are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
What I really appreciated about this is we felt really economics focused, and I know that we hit on those issues every now and then. I know we plan to get to tariffs at some point really soon too, and the impacts on our communities. But I got to tell you, like the exposure that I've had recently to I can't even call them kitchen table issues, because the people I've been encountering don't have kitchen table conversations because some don't have kitchen tables. You know what I mean? Like, so the sensitivity around, like even seeing her reaction to Kimberly's situation in Atlanta, like her eyes closed and you could see like the pain. Like I just think it matters to have people who aren't just from our community, but have stayed in tune with our community, representing us, whether they're in corporations or labor union leadership or in government. It matters. And I am grateful that she has a demonstrated record of caring about these issues and working to address them. So
Gives a damn about the people.
now,
And
has
offering
anybody
some
heard?
understanding for how funding allocation works at the state level. I think about Ray Lewis, who we had on, saying politicians don't do anything. And it really is just a lack of understanding. There's a disconnect between civic engagement, leaders and who they choose to talk to, media and who they choose to cover. And you can feel that way. Like maybe my mayor doesn't care about me, but you don't know that the Republican governor is the person who's allocating the federal funding to the mostly white neighborhoods. And that's why the black neighborhood doesn't have access to clean drinking water. So connecting those dots, I think, is really important. So I am very happy that we had her as a guest.
But Tiffany, to your point just now, it is also a call up for the electeds and the policymakers who they know every day they are doing what they can for communities to not, and it's easy to happen because it's happened to me repeatedly, to not just be in the office doing the work, but communicating back to the people exactly what you're doing on their behalf.
Yeah.
That way, even if they never get to see the fruit of the labor, that they know somebody's laboring.
Yeah.
Right?
And they literally know who you are. Like they know who you are because they've met you. They've had encounters with you. I don't think it's a lack of understanding at all. I think it's a lack of connection. Well,
I think it is a lack of understanding. There are plenty of people out there who do not know that the governor is the person allocating the funding. Like I said, I grew up in the Bible, but I've spent a lot of time down south. I can assure you it is a lack of understanding with a lot of people. But you can't blame, this is a conversation I've been having a lot. You cannot blame voters. People always tell me that. Sometimes I disagree with that. Or people say you can't blame the community. So I don't think, it's always necessary about blame, but challenging folks to maybe understand the inner workings of how things are working in the community.
I hear
the failure is on all sides.
Yes,
right.
And I don't think that it's just
Yeah.
a lack of understanding. I know I've met plenty of people on the road that understand exactly how government works, but they ain't seen their elected official in months or ever. I think that is a disconnect. So I'm not saying that everybody understands. I'm also not willing to say that nobody understands. I think that there are a lot of people. I don't think
anybody was making those general terms. But
I think a lot of people
understand,
don't understand, but there are a lot of people who are left in the dark and treated like they don't matter by their elected officials.
Yeah,
I would also just
one good
say,
testimony. I just wanted to share. Okay.
Yeah. No.
I was going to say that one good thing that I think happened from last week, when we talked, since Tiff brought up Ray Lewis, he actually did have the opportunity to connect with Randall Woodfin. Randall, who is the mayor of Birmingham, reached out to Ray and they've had a conversation. So since then, Ray has been in contact with an elected official who seems to care very deeply about his situation, Tiff. So maybe we're going to change the narrative one story at a time. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, but to your point, Andrew, I think that is the responsibility of mayors, to we all have a role to play, but it can't just be like Native Land Pod don't have the reach to talk to every inner city community,
it's a lesson. But I would suggest, I would say, I think the onus has to be on both sides, right? Because it can't be, I ain't seen my mayor, he don't never come to my house and knock on the door or to my church or hang out on my neighborhood block. And the assumption, or rather, the experience that you've not seen the mayor there does not equal that the mayor isn't working on your behalf.
Right.
Because sometimes Randall Woodfin don't need to walk the block to be educated on what's happening on the block. Right. Why? Because he came off that block. Exactly. Or he came through this experience, is understanding of what it is that is happening, and is in the halls of power, boxing like nobody's business, trying to make it a priority and bring the resources back home. But that isn't enough either. The mayor then has to make sure that cycle is being closed by keeping people informed about what you're doing. I used to say it all the time during Biden's administration. They were doing a lot early on, particularly that advantaged and was to the benefit of so many people, but not talking about it. He was in the, he's in the bowels of this stuff, but him not talking about it didn't mean that it wasn't happening. It was happening, and his failure was a failure to communicate what was happening, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I feel like we are at the breakdown of society right now. So I agree. I think every single system out there is failing. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned before to you guys that I think the media is failing.
Media, absolutely.
But also, I
say it every show.
I also think the system in the places where it does fail may be intentionally doing so.
For sure.
Yes.
It is a lot of times not in the interest of people in power to have people checking and watching and listening to everything that they are doing.
Yeah.
And so what do? They obfuscate. They make it plain. They put up these, white out glasses. You can't see through the rooms anymore, right? You don't get a record of what is happening because they don't want you to know. They're usually in there doing something they shouldn't be doing in the first place. So to the extent that there seems to be a disconnect, in some cases, it is a very intentional one.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to bring something up about our last show. And I have to tell you guys, to the listeners out there and the people who tuned into our audience, like I said, I really appreciate the ongoing conversation we have, even if it's frustration, even if it's like, Tiffany, you're driving me crazy with fill in the blank, I still appreciate that because it does feel like when I'm with my people, I just feel at home. I feel relaxed. Even if y'all mad at me, it's like, at least I know the space that you're coming from. And so I have to say, I was really disheartened at a lot of the comments from last week's show with people expressing frustration with us encouraging them to be in solidarity with people of color, other people of color. And, people continue to say things like, this what they voted for, this what they got, and I'm worried about Black people and all the things.
I thought you was mad at us. You mad at the comments. It's not better.
Well, not
but
mad, but just disappointed.
It's sad.
You know,
agree too.
It's just because I can't deny. You said this actually, Angela. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I was disagreeing with someone's thoughts about maybe you or the show, and you were like, "But that's their feeling. Like that's how they feel." And so I'm trying not to be mad to take a page from your playbook and say, "Well, that's how they feel." But I do think it is a part of a narrative that feeds that feeling. And so I just wanted to take 30 seconds and just clarify a few things. The first most important thing being that every single community of color voted by majority for Kamala Harris. The media has
Say it one more time, just in case they didn't hear you.
Every single community of color voted for Kamala Harris. The media has an intentional narrative to try to pretend that Donald Trump built this multi-coalition of voters, and he did not. White people and white people alone put that man in office, and we should not ever be confused about that. I want to give the numbers. 57% of indigenous voters, Native Americans, voted for Kamala Harris. In the AAPI community, that's the fastest growing demographic in this country. 61% voted for Kamala Harris, of which she is a member through her mother. Even in Latino voters, and this is an important one, a majority of Latino voters voted for Kamala Harris. An important note here, undocumented migrants are not voters. So they did not vote. When you say that's what they voted for, no, they did not. That makes up the bulk of people in these deportations. They did not vote. 62% of Latino voters, she won this group by a 25-point margin. Now we get into Latino men. People say, oh, well, Latino men voted for her. Even Latino men voted by majority for Kamala Harris. Trump did make gains among Latino men. We have to consider in that community, there's, I think, over 80 countries of origin in the Latino community. But Trump did get significant gains there. The Arab community, everyone's like, well, how'd that protest vote work out for them? They did not vote for Trump. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump split that community almost evenly, 20 and 21% respectively. They voted overwhelmingly for Jill Stein. Now, we can talk about how frustrating that is. We can get mad about that.
I'm real mad about that.
Jill Stein is a liar and she's a manipulator. But I'm going to tell you, if I'm seeing this shit go down in Gaza with my people, and you're asking me to vote for somebody who's only willing to call for a temporary ceasefire, and I'm seeing them bomb hospitals, schools, kill children, tens of thousands dying of starvation, and the person that everybody's saying, no, you have to vote for her, is only willing to say, I will call for a temporary ceasefire. She was willing to go further than Biden, but at the end of the day, she was sticking with the Biden administration's policy on Gaza. If you got a bunch of Black people, anybody really, but if you got a bunch of Black people dying like that and you're telling me vote for this person, I'm not going to do it. So I just think in sense of our humanity, we have to understand that. Jill Stein ran on Gaza. She had a Muslim running mate. She's also a liar. She's also an accused advocate of the Kremlin. She was seen on Russian television sitting at a table with Putin. This was all intentional. She was working hand in hand with Republican operatives.
And she won't call him what did they say he was?
A war criminal. She did eventually come out and call him a war criminal only because she was called out. But yeah, initially she wouldn't. But she was literally paying one of Donald Trump's personal lawyers. Republicans were eagerly fighting for her to get on the ballot in states. She was, an op. And it's the same way that they were able to peel off a useful tool. It was the same way they were able to peel off a slither of Black men. But again, the narrative is, Trump got all these Black men to vote for him. No, he increased his gains with Black men, but he did not. Black men voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris. So I just think if we can start there, but let's just put all that aside for a moment. I just wonder, can we tap into our humanity? and give a about what people are going through. And that's the part that's kind of heartbreaking to me, that so many people were like, who cares? But I was telling you this, Angela, there was a fair criticism of me, I thought. And they were saying, well, Tiffany, they felt like I was finger wagging, like shame on you for not caring. And a part of me does feel that way, but sorry. But I do feel like, damn, y'all, can we care? But also they were like, what are the specifics? Like, what are you asking us to do? And the truth is, I don't know what that is, because right now I am in a space of trying to gather my own beliefs. I'm not in a space to uphold the system right now. I'm in a space of, what does protecting community look like? And I have thoughts on that. But I want to ask you guys, have you seen anything? Is there any tangible work right now that has stopped something this administration is doing? Because I've not seen it. The courts are not going to hold. I've seen some things with the courts. I don't think they're going to hold. But I want the audience to know, and I want to know.
But to this point, they have. Okay. And including protests, right? When they started to, let's go back to the McCain flip, when he went down to the floor and thumbs down, right? That was as a result of overwhelming shows of outrage by the American people saying, you about to kick me off my health care? It is no longer a theoretical fight. No. I went back that far just to come forward, which is to say, this administration has announced departures from the status quo at Veterans Affairs with cuts. They've come forward, frankly, with scrubbing websites of certain information, and after certain outcries have had to put it back. They've attempted to shutter departments that judges have forced their hand on, and they've had to reverse course or bring it to a complete and total halt. Now, yes, the administration is flouting the law in some of these instances, but yes, also in some of these instances, and many of them, these judges are holding accountable those lawyers that are in their courtrooms, who have a obligation under the law as officers of the court to, one, speak truth, but also to follow the mandates of the court or suffer thy consequences. They may not be able to put Donald Trump behind bars, but they can put Pam Bondi behind bars.
You think
in
they
states
will?
Or in the federal system. I'm just saying there are consequences for flouting the law and flouting the jurisdiction of the judges and the courts. So, but also, I get why everyone doesn't know the stories in which we've been successful. They don't want us to think that there is a way to beating them. So they're not elevating the stories in which they've been beat. They've been clapped back, beat, and contained quite a bit. It hasn't so far been able to stop them from what they're doing wholesale, but we've paused them, and the courts have stopped them in their track on many of those efforts. I just think what we cannot do is make the road for them easy. When you lie down and you say, well, they're going to do what they're going to do. Well, guess what? We've got enough evidence that they've changed course or been forced to change course or have completely retreated in some instances. And that's really how I feel, y'all, about this budget that the Republicans, I'm not changing topic. I just want to pile on here.
I know, but I know you want to talk about the budget. So we can talk about it here, or we can get into it on the mini pod, because I do want to.
I'll simply say 17.5 million people they are right now trying to cut off from having access to health care.
Yeah.
And for those individuals that they're cutting off from having access to health care, they're also in this legislation closing the door to them being able to go on the exchange, which came through Obamacare, and purchase their own insurance there. So if you are not awake to the threats that are coming for our seniors and those individuals who are beneficiaries of Medicaid, which, by the way, seniors also benefit from Medicaid as well as Medicare, but Medicaid as well, especially those in poverty.
Yeah.
And then let me tell you, just to draw the line complete, those of us who have insurance, when that 17.5 million people are removed if they have their way, and they still access health care, except this time not through prevention and ongoing maintenance, but through the emergency room, those costs get passed on by the insurers directly to us. The reason our prices will go up, the reason our premiums, what we have to pay before they kick in, will increase is because they are now going to have to make space to get back the money for the services that they're now being forced to provide through emergency rooms and emergency room visits. They've got to extract that cost somewhere. And where do they go? Those of us who have insurance will pay more to pay for those that they just kicked off of insurance.
Well,
so nobody's getting away here.
But you're just so I'm clear, you're saying the thing that has stopped the Trump administration are the courts. The courts have stopped something and protests. When you say protest, you mean like literally people in the street,
on the streets, people calling their members, showing up and saying
some pages on the website.
Well, not just website. I don't mean just website. They've also. So if they intended to cut staff at Veterans Affairs as one other example, right? Bringing your level of service to a screeching halt, right? You won't get callbacks. You can't get scheduled for 6 months. And your issue is urgent and right now. But nobody can see to it because there's nobody there to see to it. What did they do? They backtrack on it. When there were certain museums, certain government buildings, the Department of Peace, they tried to go in, wholesale shut down. Just this week, the judge said, you don't have jurisdiction over that. You don't even own the building. The building doesn't even belong to the federal government. Get out of there. Well, they have to do. What did they have to do? They had to get out of there, and they were accused of trespassing because the workers shut them down and said, "No, you can't. You cannot break into this building."
But I think people are asking, "What are we asking them to do?"
Protest.
Protest. So hit the streets. Protest.
I'm just giving one example that people have disqualified the effect and the impact of good old-fashioned raising your voice, making calls, and showing up and telling your story.
Because, black people have been like, let them get out there and protest. Like, I'm not. And I think we're coming out of that.
If they're coming up my street, down my driveway, trying to take my stuff, I ain't waiting on nobody to defend me. I'm going out there for myself.
Yeah, same.
I'll stop. I know Angela's trying to get in.
Something.
Yeah, a few things. One is, I really would love for us to stop saying that black people overall are not protesting. It's just not true.
I agree.
I like, let's just start there. Like, I'm not protesting in that way. I'm focused on making sure that we're all connected and we know how to survive collectively. But there are black people who are actively protesting at all of these major activations. So let's start there. The second thing I want to say is there are some courts, even some judges, to the risk of being threatened of arrest, who are showing up to in their required duty as an official branch of government to challenge and to take on and to hold accountable this administration. And I don't want to belittle that, including, surprise, surprise, Clarence Thomas. The hoochie actually showed up and said some good the other day in court. So I want to just be clear about the fact that there are some people that are saying, enough is enough. John Roberts, who they're challenging. And then I also want to acknowledge that there are members of Congress and a mayor that we had on just last week who are showing up in their official capacities, just doing business as normal, just engaging in their oversight responsibilities, just ensuring that, when you have a migrant facility, the one that's in Newark, where LaMonica McIver is now being threatened with an assault charge for showing up
in her official. She's not threatened, they charged her.
But I'm saying I think that it could very well get thrown out, right? I'm clear about the fact. It is a false...
Which we should update. Ras Baraka's was thrown out. It is
a false charge. I'm talking about LaMonica McIver right now.
No. I was just saying as update.
Ras Baraka's was thrown out.
All right. So on LaMonica McIver, a false charge that she is now facing, where she will have to have an attorney. She will have to raise funds to fight this charge merely in her oversight capacity. After she was allegedly violent with officers where there's no documentation or proof of this, she gets the tour for the very thing that she showed up to do with other members of Congress, which is in their full oversight responsibility. What they really don't want you to know is the migrants in that facility, going full circle to Tiff's point, are not just brown people. They are black and brown people. So y'all can try to make it an us versus them as much as you want to. you're going to miss out on what it means to protect us. If they are willing to lock up the mayor of Newark, if they are willing to press charges against a sitting member of Congress, it ain't no black or brown body that is safe in this country. And we will do better if we all come together. And that is the point from last week. That is the point from this week. I don't know how many black examples y'all need, but if you don't start paying attention to it, I'm telling you, you're not safe. These people took an oath and are being charged and arrested because they're doing their duties of the oath they took. That is what's at stake. And if you don't understand what time it is, I don't know. Maybe we need to get Lawrence Fishburne to come out here and yell, wake up.
Angela, when they're arresting lawmakers, it's like, what does that mean for the everyday person? And those are some of the comments, right? Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. But those are some of the comments, too, that people were saying, like, if we go out there and protest, we on the front lines. I think it's an important point that you made about this narrative that, like, no black people are doing anything. I definitely don't want to echo that because that's not true. But this was a lot of the comments. Like, no.
Y'all on my nerves. Then how about that? Y'all on my nerves.
I give people space because in their mind, their rest is their protest, but it's not stopping anything, you know. And hold on, Tiff, because this pissed me off too. You guys, there's a difference between rest and self-care. Rest is certainly a form of self-care, but if you are watching your full neighbors sink, starve, be unhoused, not be able to pay bills, your rest is selfish. And somebody needs to tell you that. I don't know what that is. I ain't been raised around no black folks like that. And I don't want y'all nowhere near me. So sleep your ass off, but stay away from me. Because I don't know what time y'all are on. I'm not about to watch all these people suffer who look like me to take a goddamn nap. Like, I'm just not doing that. So y'all are on some other stuff. I ain't on social media.
Well,
I'm not on that. I don't like that at all. I think that's real selfish. I'm sorry.
If I could, in the spirit of accountability.
Yes.
After the election, you all sounded a lot like the voices that we hear right now.
But damn, Andrew, how long we gonna keep resting?
Let me finish making my point.
Okay.
Because I think we can't talk at folks as if we haven't been there ourselves. And you all both, of the three of us, I was never there, but we're basically the rest of them. I'm concerned about me and the people who I love. That's where you were.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about the people I love.
But I know you are. But let me just make room for the possibility that we all need our own time and space for growth, to grow in. Like there are phases of
Don't die
Excuse
on me.
me.
I care about you too.
No, I'm just trying to clear
I need you to survive.
Survive. Thank you. I need you mostly to survive. But just like there are phases of grief, folks have to come to the place where it is now more clear to me the thing that I've got to do in order to survive. And I'm not even suggesting that you take actions to the benefit of your neighbor. What I'm suggesting is I think where people have to get to, sometimes the problem has to travel not just down our street, but up our walkway, down the driveway, into the garage or under the covered patio or whatever that is before we understand what the stakes are.
Yeah.
Because other than that, the stakes we're dealing with are I got to keep a roof over my head, food on the table, my kids fed and dressed, and keep my job so I can get income and repeat this cycle next month. So I just think I understand the sentiment, even if it isn't one that I share for myself. But I think the best thing we can do is hope that folks can recover much quicker. Than we have been recovering.
I don't think people are fully real. I don't think people are completely engaged. I don't think people fully realize that we are about to go through some bad times.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, the bad times have already started. And for most people, they think they've been in it already for a long time.
That is true.
But
That's
the truth of the matter is, if it has been that way before, let's just multiply it.
Well,
I don't mean that to be sensational. I simply mean it is. The fact of the matter is these folks are coming for everything.
That's it.
You can see it in their movements. You can hear it in what they say. And we could keep being entrapped by this idea that he says one thing, but he really doesn't mean it. Yeah. Y'all, he said it. He meant it. They're taking action on it. And they're going to figure out hell or high water one way or another how to get there. Take, for instance, he wants to go after, we talked about, what is it? The place where you give money for Democrats, Act Blue, right? Well, guess what? In this legislation that the Republicans are considering right now, they want to make it a unilateral decision that the president can determine who is a nonprofit and who is not. The president can determine that if you're an organization that renders service to people who are immigrants in this country, that you are a seditionist, that you are a traitor to the country, and you should be treated as a terrorist sympathizing organization. And without any rule of law,
Andrew,
that
I'm
designation will allow the
topic.
administration to do what this. No, this is all connected. We are not. We are indivisible in this thing.
No,
a fight there is a fight here. Yes, it is.
No, but wait a minute, because you said something. I just want to be accountable. Just 1 second. Just one. It's not even a production timeout. It's just I got AED timeout. Okay. I receive what you're saying about people having to arrive in their own time. What I think is not fair to everybody, but I'm going to own my stuff, is I'm feeling the pressure and the fierce urgency of now. And I am terrified that in our rest, whoever's resting among us, we're going to miss the moment. And I don't want people who I love and care about in my community, in the culture, to be left behind because they thought they had more time than they do. To Tiff's point, I feel that. Right? People are feeling like already helpless. So while we're losing people on rest that are fully capable, fully gifted, fully talented, fully resourced, and we can't tap into them because they on a boycott right now. Like, keep boycotting Target, but show up for us.
We can't browbeat them back out to the streets.
What can we do?
Everyone will have to come. No, because
it's like,
as
Angela,
I said,
when
I
you,
feel like
when
they
you
will
felt
have to
that
come
way,
to their own.
Right. When you felt that way, if somebody on November 9th was like, Angela, like, what are you doing? Like, I think we have to get out of the habit of censoring ourselves, which is the hardest thing, because it's like, because I care about this thing today, everybody else should care about this thing today.
That's not what I mean.
And
but you're saying the problem is going to come to them too.
Right. Yes. I think we're all saying that. All three of us are saying we are in this path of destruction.
Together.
What will it take together?
Yes.
And what will it take to get people motivated? What our audience is asking is, okay, fine. You want me to stop resting. What specifically are you asking me to do? And how specifically will that stop this shit show that we're seeing? And I think that's a legitimate question. Let me just say, Angela, I just have one idea.
Okay.
Because I've been thinking about this. I don't act in haste. And I don't thrive in chaos. Right now, it feels like chaos. And so sometimes for me, when it's chaos, I have to take a step back and just observe, just read, write, talk to folks, not necessarily in an organized way, but like just talk to people on my terms, my time. Like, let me figure out what the is going on. And that's what I feel like I've been in that space for probably 3 months now. And I have come up with an idea that's not all the way thought through. And I think a part of it is a reverse migration, which is why I want to have Charles Blow on the show. But I think what would happen if we built our own little Wakandan communities in the rural South and reshape the political map of America. We don't have to talk about it now. But
I like what you're saying. I think what's frustrating is because even for the three of us, we've not been in conversation. That is part of what's happening on the tour. The reason we have the Acre Boys on the tour, I'm serious. I know everything goes back to the tour. I'm sorry.
It's not that. I got something to say about it, but go ahead.
I definitely want to hear, but we have like even the stuff that Cliff and Latasha and them are working on. Same thing, like trying to create co-op communities and farming communities to ensure that our folks have food and resource in case that's cut off in the stores. I think even with the Acre Boys, where they put up a post yesterday on where Black folks can buy land for reasonable costs in the South. That is absolutely a part of it and has to be a part of it. I'd love to have that conversation.
But I think why I laugh a little is because I think the tour has been awesome for people who like have curiosity about like what it's like in these communities and what's happening and where the work is. that work is happening independent of the tour a lot of places.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, like, I'm not doing this in isolation. This is also from, work, reading, my upbringing, family, different things that I do. Andrew, I know, in Florida you do, and we'll all be together in Jackson. You and I have talked about the work I did in Jackson some years ago, which is why I wanted to do that stop on the tour. But I don't know the tangible results of that either. And so I guess I'm just looking at what can I do selfishly. I'm looking at what can I do for safety for me and my family immediately. And can we talk about your thing yet? I'm not going to say it if we can't. I'm also concerned about your safety.
I'll be ready to talk about, I'm concerned about my safety too. I'll be ready to talk about it next week.
Okay, tune in next week because we are returning.
What is... Okay, if I could.
Well, you know what? Can I pause us right there? This conversation is so robust. Can we pick this up on the mini pod? Y'all got to tune in tomorrow, okay?
That works.
For all the folks who are listening right now, we're going to wrap up, but we're going to keep the conversation going. So please be sure to tune in to the mini pod where we will finish this conversation because we have a lot of things to say. Do y'all want to do a CTA real quick, or y'all just want to go straight to? For the
CTAs, I just want folks to know on FAMU, the battle is not over. There's another vote that must take place. FAMU has not been wholesale taken over by anything. Why? Because they are not FAMU. We are the institution. Somebody asked, Keisha said, do I keep my money? Do I save it? Where do I put it? Guess what? That's our university. It ain't theirs. I don't care who the damn president is. I do care. But on the real, FAMU doesn't belong to any one individual. That you can't drive me out of my house. I'm driving your ass out of my house. You're not going to drive me off my campus. It's homecoming. It's my homecoming. You're not welcome. You're not going to keep me from giving money to scholarship my cousins and them who are coming up after me because it's my money. Those are my cousins and it's my campus. So stay involved if you want to know more. Keep. We got a town hall meeting tomorrow night. I think we put the alert out last night.
Well,
and already something like 1,700 people have RSVP.
Because by the time this airs,
that's right. It'll be out. You're right.
Okay.
Thank you, Tiff. That's my CTA. Stay
Angela,
focused.
did you have a CTA?
Yes. Connect with people in your communities, y'all. I'm not meaning to say that you can only get this work on the tour. I'm just saying there are a lot of people who are connecting across cities, across states, across the country who have been doing similar work. And it has been remarkable to watch people who've been doing similar things, have similar ideologies, finally be fully resourced and supported with folks who are thinking like them all over the country. So check us out at stateoftheppl.com. Come through.
And we'll be in Jackson together. And shout out to all the folks who are working hard on State of the People Tour and follow them on Instagram. Okay, please tune in, you guys, because we're going to keep this conversation going. Also, please be sure that you like and subscribe and share and tell your friends about us. New episodes drop every Thursday and Friday, so you can hear this next part of the conversation on Friday. And you can check out Solo Pods with Angela and Andrew on Mondays and Tuesdays. And please be sure to check out our girl Jamel Hill on Politics and Off the Cuff, the other shows on Reason Choice Media. There are 530 days until midterm elections. Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Andrew Gillum and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear.
We're so grateful.
Took the oath to execute roles.
Yeah, faithful.
Preserve, defend, and protect the truth.
Even if painful.
Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.